Ms. Thomas is excused.
All right, and item 3 is approval of the minutes from July 24th, 2017. Susan's got the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any edits? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, minutes have been approved. Appearances, is there anybody that wishes to appear on an item that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, all the ones here, just double check. We will close the appearance section. There is no unfinished business tonight. New business, item 6A. We'll start with the public hearing on a request by the Chase Bank, represented by the Architects Partnership, TAP, for a zoning permit for a site plan and building alterations to 2251 West Broadway, the former Radio Shack and Outlet 2 of the CSM number 6804. All right. If you could introduce yourself and then give us a brief overview.
Certainly. Good evening. My name is Amy Ferguson. I'm with the Architects Partnership. We are the architect of record for Chase Bank in doing this renovation and remodel of the building. What we are proposing to do is add some new windows along the south elevation and the west elevation for our offices that are located internally. We're proposing to remove the blue angled metal coping / parapet roofing element and extend it with a straight up parapet finished in ephes to match the rest of the building. All of that for the main of it painted a latte color with an accent of canyon clay to simulate the Chase prototype standard of sunset red brick from Acme Company. So first up on the screen is the proposed exterior elevation for the south and the west, which is where the new windows are. This is a proposed new window. These are proposed new windows. This is an existing spandrel storefront that we're going to open up and have clear glass in the top 2 panes and spandrel glass remaining in the bottom pane. Please let me know if I'm moving too quickly.
Nope.
The existing trash enclosure would be painted to match the building. The east and north facades are shown on this plan. The north elevation, we're proposing no changes other than the parapet extensions, both a short parapet and a taller parapet at the corner. For the east elevation, we're proposing a canopy over the existing entry, and that canopy will be drained down to drained down to the ground to pervious surface. What we're looking at now is our proposed site plan, just as an overall view of it. 2 elements that we will be addressing per comments that were returned is, one, we will be adding an access from our sidewalk to the public sidewalk on West Broadway. And the second item is we will be including a bike rack. So we have our proposed entries, a new one here, a new one here, and a new one down there. This entry is main flow for traffic in and out without creating a dead-end situation where there would be backup problems. And then this is our entry out only for the ATM. Our proposed ATM location is right here where we have stacking for at least 4 cars. Are there any questions on the elevations and site plan so far?
During the public hearing, we'll just, if there's any clarification, and then when we get to the next item, we'll dig into some more of the details.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yep.
From there, we'll just move on and go through the signage real quickly.
Why don't we take this first item, then we'll come back and do the signage.
Okay.
That way,
Sure.
we can keep consistent in case there's someone that's a late show up and they want to chime in.
Not a problem.
All right. And are there any clarifications during the public hearing section? All right, see none. Oh, Nancy?
I just had a few questions about the materials, and I'm not sure if it belongs in this public hearing section or not.
We can do it in the next one.
Okay.
If that's right.
Okay.
We can close item 6A, move on to 6B, which is a consideration of action on the request by Chase Bank, represented by the Architects Partnership, TAP, for a zoning permit and site plan for the building alterations at 2251 West Broadway, former Radio Shack and Outlet 2 of the CSM 6804. Sunny, you want to give us an overview from city staff standpoint, and we'll go from there.
Zoning permits required for the substantial building and site alterations. Chase Bank is currently located at 802 West Broadway over at our riverfront site, and their move is necessitated by that redevelopment project, moving into the former Radio Shack building over at Southtown Mall. We have action scheduled in one review tonight due to the tight timelines over at the riverfront site. We've already gone through the changes that they're proposing. Approval is recommended. There are no concerns with the land use proposed. Parking requirements, for example, are the same for the new use for the bank as they were for the prior use as the retail Radio Shack store. Conditions of approval recommended to address some minor issues. Number 1 and 2 are standard approvals for building permits and compliance with all fire codes. Condition number 3, Darren Pope at Beerbicker Associates, our consultant engineer, completed a detailed review of the site layout and grading, erosion control, stormwater, vehicle circulation, and utilities. There were a lot of details outlined in his letter. None of them I thought were really concerning, and he also recommended approval with a few conditions that a letter be submitted that specifically addresses all of those comments in his review letter. That a standard facilities maintenance agreement be submitted. Erosion control and stormwater management permit applications shall be pulled properly. And then condition number 6, back to the city staff comments, a bicycle rack should be provided. The landscaping plan overall met standards. There are a few things that the code requires, such as all newly planted canopy trees shall have a minimum caliper of 2 to 2.5 inches. They were proposing one new canopy tree with a 1.5 inch caliper. And then where there are 12 parking spaces, the code requires that those be divided with a tree island. There are 13 spaces shown on the site plan, so I recommended that the 6th or 7th parking stall in that row be replaced with an island, landscaping island. Number 8, the lighting standards in the code require that lighting at the property line have an intensity of not more than 3 foot candles. There are some locations shown on their photometric plan where that's exceeded. I think they get up to 6 foot candles in some locations. The Plan Commission should discuss whether or not that's of concern. I think this Broadway corridor is a more heavily trafficked area. I'm not a lighting engineer, and there might be some other comments that you all have of whether that's appropriate or if it should be reduced. Plan Commission approval of sign permits is required, and it's on the agenda later. And then just in general, the parking standards, as I mentioned, are met. 9 are required, and they're providing 22. The green space percentage is met. 30% is required. They're providing 78 between the 2 parcels. And the landscaping I mentioned in general meets requirements. 330 points are required. They're providing 474 points when counting existing landscaping, and they're providing 2 canopy trees. The code requires 1. Those are all my comments.
All right. Nancy, did you want to start off? I know.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions about the materials, having participated in a class action lawsuit on EFS. I'm wondering if some of the repairs that are necessary are in fact because of the failures that have been found with EFS with water infiltration problems, and if it makes sense to be treating it in some other way or using another material altogether, as to not be just repeating potential problems with it.
That's an understood concern. What we have found to be the case is that the building is sound and dry with no visible indications of any water leakage, either through the roof or
Okay.
through the wall system. The damage that's on the EFS is physical damage from such like lawnmowers and weed whackers, that kind of thing,
Okay.
hitting the EFS. Overall, it's in good sound condition.
Okay.
And we do have an EFS contractor on board to make the necessary repairs and maintain a warranty for the system.
Okay. Okay. And then similarly, I noticed the intention to use hardy board, which has been brought up with other projects in the committee, is a fiber cement product that more recently has been brought up as a potential health hazard, and with several projects. There's an alternative, which you're probably familiar with, Smart Side, that's about the same price and has the same warranty and is less brittle and potentially problematic than the hardy board, and I just didn't know if any consideration had been given to that or could be given to that.
We will certainly look into it. Can you give me the name again of the alternate product you were saying?
It's LP Smart Side. It's a wood-based product rather than something that emits superfine fibers.
That is something we can certainly consider. Yes.
I think actually the Smart Side is a little less expensive than the cement board.
Right, it has the same.
Other questions or comments? And we'll just go down the track here. Dale?
I think it looks great. I mean, a great reuse for the building, so that's nice. The only question I have, well, one is I'm going to disagree with staff regarding the elimination of a parking stall if in fact you really feel you need those 22. There's a lot of room for landscaping between there and Broadway, and you certainly could get in plenty of landscaping there. So I for one, am not concerned about whether you eliminate that stall or not for a landscape island, regardless of the code. What's with the road next to the ATM on the south side of the ATM, like through traffic?
That's a bypass lane, so people can go around if they want to. If there's too many cars in the ATM and they just want to leave, or if they want to go further up the Broadway access road in order to get out as well.
Yeah, so it seems excessive and not necessary. But whatever, you're into it. Always looking for an opportunity for landscaping as opposed to asphalt. So otherwise, I think it's great.
Susan?
I think it looks great too. I think it'll improve the current site, the whole thing, including where the ATM is. I hadn't thought about the question Jill just raised. The only thing that I wondered, and it seemed like staff recommendation was to go for it, was the comment about the ladder truck having to back out at one point. wonder if that it had to do, I believe, with where the stalls were near the building, that it could come in in a straightforward way through the driveway, but then do you know more about that, Sonia, or can you?
Yeah, Darren Pope's letter,
Yeah,
and I attached the auto turn analysis
Right.
that showed it was a little bit tight in a couple of areas. And one thing that I know, the fire code is allowed to back up as long as that
Okay.
distance is less than 150 feet.
Okay, so I noticed he's commented that it was tight, but he was kind of recommending approval anyway, so I just.
And he still
wanted to ask
recommended
about it.
approval.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So otherwise, I thought it looked great, and, yeah, well, the other one was the signage thing, so anyway, I'll save that.
I think it's a great reuse of the property. I don't have any concerns.
Chris?
Couple questions. First, I'd echo Alder Moore's comment about the LT Smart site. There's been a lot of problems with some of the other stuff, so I think that's something we should seriously look at. For
Yes,
material.
we will do that.
I have a question about the outlot. And I was hoping Kathy was here tonight. She might have some history on it. And Griff, you might remember, but that outlot was originally put in for Southtown. Do you know the history behind why it's there and what it is that's used? Because generally, code, we don't even allow buildings on outlots. And I'm not opposed to what we're doing, but I think we have to be careful. And I believe this outlot was also there as a landscape buffer to Southtown. If you look at,
Right.
like this overhead right here, you can see it's just a sea of asphalt. Click overhead on. There we go. This is a great one to see it. And I believe that this was what did I do? It's that glare. It was put in, I know part of it was for the road reconstruction. It was also used as a buffer. And I wasn't here when Southtown was built, but I was when we did the Radio Shack. And one thing we asked was to maintain this buffer to the center from Broadway. So if the bank is buying outlot 2 from the developer and combining it to make one lot, then the bank's taking on the responsibility to maintain that landscape buffer. And I think that should be talked about somewhere in the approval, because now all of a sudden we have somebody that's not responsible for it owning the buffer to Southtown and all the trees and everything that were put in there.
Chris, can you point out approximately, and then dig in the city paperwork to see where outlet 2, how far?
Well, I believe, I don't want to speak for the applicant, I believe outlot 1's just right here. And when we did that with Lizzie, he came in and he said, you know, if this, really I could fit a building in here. And we looked at it and said, no, you could. And it might not be a bad place for it. So it's right here. Now, the bank is buying, that history, and maybe somebody in the room knows it better, but I assume they're getting outlot 2 so they can put their drive-up facility here. And this entire piece is outlot 2. And this is the part I'm talking about that was put together, and we talked about when we did this, that did the plantings in there. We talked with Lizzie about it to have some nice buffer because there's not much there. So how does that affect this is one of my questions.
So your concern is the maintenance of,
Well, yeah, all of a sudden now the bank owns the buffer that the outlot, number one, outlot is generally not buildable. And 9 out of 10 cases, it's not buildable. Now, we're putting a parking lot on at ATM, and I don't have an issue with that whatsoever, but we should, number one, know that it's even buildable, because a lot of times there's a deed restriction against that on an outlot. And number two, make sure that somehow we have some vehicle or mechanism to maintain that buffer. This center would look a lot different if this is all cut down, and I did see something in here somewhere, I can't remember what sheet it was on, about any future building or something happening in outlot 2, which, I mean, the thing is so narrow, all you could possibly do is maybe put a small strip of asphalt or something. But I don't think that would be the commission's intention, would be to pave over that landscape buffer.
well, do we know whether that red line represents what's being purchased?
I believe that is not.
No, in fact, there is a document here
We
that
have the
represents
survey
that entire
here.
buffer.
We have the survey
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Oops,
Outlet 2
other
goes-
way.
all the way over.
So we've got outlot 1, I believe, right here, and this is, I believe, all outlot 2, all the way down and through.
And Chase is purchasing the whole thing.
But the,
No.
Maybe somebody from
Yeah,
Chase.
does someone have that answer?
Karen, do you want to?
Awesome.
Karen Sebastian with our real estate team can speak to that.
Perfect. Well, we're glad
I
you're
know who
here.
gets this, but
Thank you.
I'm Karen Sebastian. I'm the real estate manager with Chase Bank. We are not purchasing any of this. We are leasing from the owner of the Radio Shack, who has under contract Lot 2.
Outlot 2?
Outlot 2. So he has that under contract, and the intention is to combine the two. And our only plan is to add the drive-up ATM on Outlot 2, not taking out any existing trees, just kind of filling in the vacant area and then landscaping around it. So we will be on a lease for the entire parcel.
So they don't own Outlot 2 right now, but
No, they have it under contract.
They have it under contract,
Yes.
so they will be purchasing it.
Yes.
And then they'll be running
Leasing it to
CSM,
us.
But they'll then, I assume, record the CSM to combine the two?
Yes, that's the plan.
Looking at Mr. Dunlop, who's here, and I'm sure he has something to do with that. Okay, it's nodding yes.
Yes. It was, Phil Dunlop with GIC Professional Services. There's a draft certified survey map in here that's also being processed.
Here, over right now, isn't it?
And that would be to combine the two lots. The owner of Outlot 1 would become the owner of both lots.
Right.
And right now, the plans show us avoiding the trees that are in place.
I understand, but you understand my concern that we have some
He
vehicle
would-
or condition here that we maintain the landscape buffer on the remainder of.
In order for him to do anything else on the remainder of the outlot, he'd have to come back to this commission and also probably have to redivide that property. So
Yeah,
that would be your opportunity to basically look at that and comment on it.
I might disagree with that. I think it's still legal for a property owner to cut down trees on their property without coming to the planning commission. If it's not an area that's been set to be preserved. And my concern would be the, excuse me, condition was placed on a previous owner and it wouldn't be on this property.
When
I
the
don't know.
CSM for Lot 1 and Lot 2 would be requested to be combined, that comes to this committee, or does it go to council?
A CSM is not required to be approved by the planning commission when you're combining lots. It's only required when you're creating a new lot. So they can record this.
We have the authority to put a condition on here, though, that the landscape buffer is maintained.
That was a different
Yeah.
question.
Right, so, well, I know where you were going with that. At that time, you could, but we could with tonight's action also do that.
So if that restriction exists on Outlot 2, doesn't it automatically transfer with the sale?
The problem is we don't know how it was recorded or what's there. And if we want to pass this in one reading, we don't have time to investigate that. So what I'm thinking is as long as we have a condition on there, and a condition, you can always come back if you really think it's a poor condition or something,
Onerous,
ask to have it changed if there's some reason. But again, I'm thinking just to protect the city, we don't have time to investigate all that. We would put a condition on that the existing landscape buffer is maintained. And you know, if you have to come and cut down a tree and replace it, I'm not talking about that. If I'm talking about.
At this point, we don't.
Understood.
If the owner wants to do something different, then he has to come back and present that, so.
That it would be required to come back and then present something before you go and just tear it open. Yes.
so even where the ATM driveway comes in, that's coming in before you get to any of the existing. I mean, it's right on that corner, so
Yes.
then we could word the condition that way, that makes sense.
Okay.
Chris, other comments?
I do. I noticed something in, Bill, I'm glad you're here. I noticed something about a water lateral abandonment. Perhaps, maybe we might kind of
There's a change in elevation of the parking lot,
Right.
so we're concerned about cover. And
Understood.
also, it wraps its way up in through the right-of-way and back down onto the property.
Can you come closer? There we go. We got
Uh,
100 visitors.
There,
on the website
there were
right
two.
now.
There were two items on there. One is we're changing the grade of the parking lot and bringing it down. We want to make sure we maintain the proper cover over the lateral. And the other thing is the existing lateral, when it was marked, shows it going up from the access drive into the right-of-way of West Broadway and then back down onto the property. And we're basically making it shorter and more efficient.
So you're not abandoning that?
We would be abandoning it in place, but then replacing
Okay,
it.
the reason I asked that is because in abandonment in the city of Monona, I'm not sure if you're aware, but you have to
Oh.
abandon it all the way back to the main if you're going to abandon it, but you're
No.
actually reusing it.
We're
So it's not
reusing
an
it.
abandonment.
Right.
That was the gist of
Okay.
my question.
Got it?
Thanks.
We're just not going to take out the existing pipe where we don't
Sure.
have to.
Perfect. I should back up. I think this is a great reuse for the site. I think it's a good location for a bank. It's very visible. And there's a lot of traffic there, and hopefully you bring traffic off the road to go to some of the retail outlets there too. So I think that part of it's awesome. For me, I would like to be able to see some masonry on there. I guess it's probably not possible in this case. Most buildings around there don't. I would echo Mr. Ganser's comment. Most municipalities, when you go to them, they require a bypass lane. And that might have been some of your thinking on this. When I look at your traffic layout with the two driveways, let's pick any it's almost, you have to be going to the drive-through to get in there. So I'm just not sure, and that's certainly your call, and if you really feel it's necessary, then it's necessary, but the way you're signed, somebody can dump out here, but once they come in here, the only reason to come in this driveway is to go through the ATM or the drive-up. There's no other reason to it. When I saw this initially, I thought, oh, well, maybe they're going to put a drive-up location here and ATM here or something, but if that's not what you're doing, I'm not here to say you can't have it, but it's something you can think about. It might take you out of this retaining wall situation, these utilities that are here. It might solve some space issues for you. You're smiling. You can certainly comment on it.
Well, there are peak times where the ATM is backed up and people just
Pull
don't
in
like
and just
it.
want to
Yeah,
dump
no,
out.
no, forget it, and they
Okay.
bail.
So they'll pull in.
And we don't want them backing up and
Nope.
trying to go out the other, I mean, we've added all of these curb cuts to make traffic flow easily.
And that's fine. It's a lot of extra infrastructure for that 20-foot.
And because we don't
trip.
have a drive-up at this location, we
Mhm.
don't have a drive-up teller service,
At all?
no.
So the ATM doesn't double as that, simply an ATM.
It's simply an ATM.
Oh my.
So the ATM will be highly used because we don't have a drive-up.
Okay.
And there's really not a good way to add a drive-up at this location.
Okay.
Because of how close it hugs up to the
Mhm.
corner.
Okay.
So we expect it to be kind of a high-capacity ATM.
Okay. The sidewalk connection's not listed on this, so I would recommend we have a condition of that also. I think it's a great idea to have a sidewalk there. We spent a lot of money putting sidewalks up and down Broadway, hoping we could accommodate foot traffic, so I'm glad that you recognize that. The north elevation is a bit plain, and that's the one towards Broadway. Was there any opportunity to put any windows or anything in that north elevation?
Sign. Really like a sign.
Here, thank you.
Seems like they know.
That's where I was going to suggest a logo, which is, I know it's.
The complications with the north elevation is, one, that's where our utilities are at.
Okay.
And then the other thing is that's also where, on our interior floor plan, that's where our back of office is. So we have our data room there, we have our security areas, we have our cash equipment room there.
Dumpsters there as well outside.
Right, the dumpster is there as well. You don't see it in this elevation, but it is in front of the door.
Right.
The dumpster.
Yep.
The-
Okay.
Yeah, the trash enclosure is in
Yeah,
front
it
of the
really
doorway area. So there's, it's already screened pretty well with evergreens. from the main Broadway street. And the only thing that's really visible, and you have to get kind of catty corner to it to see that elevation, the only portion of it that's truly visible without trying hard is the west side of it.
Okay. That kind of segues me into my next comment. So I'll pull up the landscape plan. For the same reasons that you're going to be here on the next agenda item to say, boy, we'd really like more than just 2 signs because we are so visible from all these roads. That'd be the same reason I'm going to comment that we really should do something, I think, just to bip up the landscaping on the side towards Broadway. And I recognize that you're above our minimum points, and that's not even counting the ornamental grasses and the flowers, which really sometime we should get into our formula. But this is a building that's very visible. If you look along this whole side by Broadway, there's the evergreens that wrap the dumpster enclosure, and that's about it. And there's really not much else except for down in here. So it would seem to me that we could get a little more landscaping on the north side to, not to block your building, but to accent it and to show it off a little bit. And I guess I'll probably agree with the previous comments that it's our ordinance. I'm glad you caught it, and we almost always don't go more than 12 stalls, but in this case with this one over, and the fact that they have to get a truck in here, which a lot of times will want to come out and try to come in that way when there's no traffic, it would seem to me we would be better served by increasing that landscaping on the north side. I know the applicant would like to not have that one island, because for snow plowing they can just push it straight, and it's a lot more difficult once you put an island in the middle and it's only one over. For me, I would much rather see additional landscaping than spend the money on another island. It'd be a lot easier for them to maintain. So I guess that's where I'm throwing in with that comment. Connection, landscape outlets.
If I may comment on that, going on this theme, because the parking lot is so close to our actual property line. We do have a lot of green space beyond our property line, but it is so close to our property line. And we have a very steep elevation grade there. We actually have a retaining wall that's making that up. So any of the landscaping would be literally up above the parking by a few feet.
I understand that.
Along that area, and it creates a very small avenue that's actually within our property to landscape. This is the property line.
Right.
Yeah.
This is all yours. There's opportunity here, and there is opportunity to get something in here. There are opportunities, and it is fairly plain. If you remember the landscape buffer, that's way down here, and there aren't. I mean, even a couple trees up on that end would be nice. Something would be nice up on that end to complete that landscaping. Because right now, and I drove by it a couple times today, it's plain from Broadway right now.
Understood. Yes.
Can we ask for a landscape buffer on the right-of-way? Like within, like a 4-foot path along the property line that they can landscape in? To create a buffer for us?
We have asked for that before. Public Works would need to chime in and just agree to it if it can be done. And if our condition tonight ends up with some additional landscaping approved by staff, that would mean Sonia could work with Public Works, and if they don't allow it, then it has to be on the property. We have done it in the past, but they'd have to agree, and then the applicant would need to agree to maintain the landscaping. Yes, absolutely. And it's a big green area. It's a large green area, no doubt about it, which is what allows that parking lot to be so close to the property lines without looking like it. It doesn't look like it's jammed in there.
Rob? Just going off the landscaping again, I don't know, I think the opportunity of adding an island to break up the parking is a good idea, and adding that island is a great opportunity for highlighting and landscaping, I think. I wouldn't be opposed of adding some along the north property line, given the visibility, or I think 2 other candidates for a little highlighting is on the northwest corner of the building, which would set off your sign, I think. You're doing something medium-sized, ornamental. And then also on the far east side, on the other side of the exit for the drive-through, to kind of bookend the entryways, or the curb cuts off the street there. I think that would be good additions to the plan. I had a question about the dumpster enclosure. You said in your opening presentation that you were going to paint the existing, and on the elevations it says there's going to be new siding.
Right. The dumpster is constructed in a similar fashion as the building, which is EIFS with a band of vinyl siding, and then in the case of the building, EIFS again on top. In case of the trash enclosure, it's EIFS at the bottom, vinyl siding on the top. So we would be repairing and painting the EIFS that's existing on the bottom and replacing the deteriorating vinyl siding that makes up the remainder of the trash enclosure with same siding as what we're putting on the building.
Okay. I think that's the only comments that I had.
Chris?
I'd like to go, I have one more. Condition 8, the photometric plan. In this case, most of the leakage is towards our street, our own street that we try to light up. And there's nobody else around this property, so in this case, I would think we can allow the minor areas that are above what's normal. I think it just helps light up the area, and I don't think there'd be any point in doing further shielding to the lighting. It wouldn't be any larger wattage or less wattage, it'd just be different shielding, and I don't really think it's necessary in this instance.
And there's a sidewalk there now, or there's going to be, right?
No, not on.
I can pull up the photometric plan. So the areas that we have, the areas of concern is we have a few areas here at the ATM that are in the 4.4 range. And then over here where we have our site lighting, we do get up to about 6 on the property line. And it falls off very quickly. We're at 3.2 by here and 3.2 by here. On our so this is really the area of concern with that we hit a 6.0 as a maximum right there on the property line.
I think that's fine.
Could you point out approximately where the sidewalk from the building to Broadway sidewalk lines up with that? Now I can see it better.
So I'm going to sketch in where we would be proposing the sidewalk to connect. And then just because it's kind of hard to read on this, I'm going to add a crosshatch to make it.
Thank you. Any further comments, concerns?
I would just, I guess I just want to echo I think it's overall, it's a great addition, and that I would echo, I would concur with several other council members as it relates to landscaping in the north property line, especially the concern about the buffer on the outlot to Broadway, and also concur with adding an island, some additional landscaping.
All right, so it seems like we're going to have a few items to maybe go around to give opportunity for some last discussion points, and it really seems like it's boiling down to overall the site, perfect reuse of the site, a nice job, nice plans put together. The concerns that I've heard that we're going to have to work out are issues around the bypass lane, although not required. It seems to make some sense to me, given the presentation of why it might be there. especially when you added the piece about no drive-up window, and the use might be a different level of use than we anticipate. The idea around the island, the traffic island, and discussion about the pros and cons of adding a traffic island and making that be contingent, and then balancing that with the issue of landscaping, although the site overall is exceeding, it's clustered in certain areas that might give us some opportunities to look at some other aspects. So maybe around the items of traffic island and landscaping, if we can go around kind of just to voice where we're at and then maybe look for a motion. Nancy, do you mind starting us off, and we'll just go back around the same order?
Sure, I would just say what I said a minute ago, which is that I think that it's that the idea of adding the island and trying to beef up the landscaping on, especially along the north property line, and making sure that when we get into issues with the outlot, that buffer, I think, remains to Broadway. Would be great additions to the property and would only add to the appeal overall. And I think.
All right, Dale?
Well, in lieu of the island, I would ask that staff communicate with Public Works, and rather than put in an island, we ask them to landscape a 5-foot band on the right-of-way north of the parking lot. And just as a note, you just drew that sidewalk like right up to the front of the dumpster.
It's close.
It would come around to the
Yeah.
So maybe
It would be a
that,
little bit further away from that, but it is fairly close.
Yeah.
It just, unfortunately, it's just the conditions of the site. The dumpster is existing there. The sidewalk in front of it is
Maybe
existing.
the bike rack somewhere.
what is that crosshatch, sorry if I'm derailing your
No,
your
it's fine.
request, Brian. The crosshatch section in the parking lot, right, that is still paved?
Which,
Well, right in front of the dumpster.
yes,
That's still paved,
that's
so-
paved. That would be striped to be a loading zone.
So
That would be our accessible aisle in addition to a loading zone, because you can't get a car into there and back out again.
Right,
It's just realistic.
so maybe
And
that
with the dumps-
sidewalk goes to the east side of that
Certainly, yeah.
area?
Right,
A little more inviting.
we could do that. Chase's preference is usually to keep a continuous sidewalk, but we could interrupt it off into the loading zone and back up again onto the existing sidewalk, certainly.
I'm going to chime in on the idea of meandering sidewalks.
This sidewalk does go right past the front.
Yeah.
You know, if they want to keep it right up through here, that's concrete, the dumpster's back here. They could go right up there.
Look at the doors, look at the door opening from the dumpster thing.
Let me see.
According to this drawing that opens onto the path.
My door's too much wide. Is it a single door?
No, it's a split double door. So they don't cover the entire,
So it's a-
Concrete.
something to look at before you do the final out.
yes.
All right.
It would just be my luck that they'd open while I was walking up to the bank.
Or riding your bike down. Yeah.
Yeah. Chris might be behind him opening it when he sees me coming.
All right. Susan.
I'd actually be in favor of foregoing the island with the added tree and concentrating on landscaping. To me, that makes just more sense. Easier to maintain, and it would look just as nice from Broadway. It would look nicer, really, to have more landscaping there, and I just don't see adding the island as a crucial thing. And then maybe adding some on the north part. And I also think the double driveway makes some sense because of the backing up traffic. That makes sense to me. And I know, because it's more people's, you might see the cars backed up from the street, but it's more likely people are going to pull in and then see them and think, oh, I don't want to do this. So I think that's logical. And that's I mean, I can't remember if you show landscaping there or not, but that's another place where you can plant a couple things to make it look nicer. So I'm fine with it, I think it looks good.
All right, Griff?
I guess I'd be in favor too of, instead of in lieu of the island, requiring additional landscaping along the north side. And I see no reason why we shouldn't put a condition in here requiring the continuation of the buffer of trees.
All right. Chris?
I already mentioned, I'm fine with taking it out. If it ends up staying in, it doesn't bother me, and I think Rob would like it in, so it's up to you.
We'll see. He's heard from everybody
I
else.
would like it in, and I'd love to see a shade tree there. I don't see the need for a 5-foot ban. I think it's overkill. They meet the expectations. I think putting the island would be a nice addition to the site. If we wanted additional landscaping, the island in front of the drive-through ATM, that's shown as seed right now, 5 feet. I mean, that could all be landscaped in there. The 12-foot drive aisle, we could do 6-foot potentially and have that 11-foot drive aisle. I don't know if that has to be 12 feet there. It seems it's 10 feet on the other side where the majority of the traffic's going to be heading. If you expand that island to the south a little bit and make it a 6-foot island and landscape that, that would be.
About the width of this one, because it's just a bypass lane.
Yeah, we could reduce that and add some more green space between.
Personally, I don't think we need a strip the entire length along the north side. I think an island that was landscaped would be a better solution in my opinion.
We just added a whole new layer of complexity for folks. So what I'm hearing is the island separating the bypass lane, because the drive aisle on that side is a wider aisle than the ATM side. That if they
Well, the main traffic's going to be going up next to the ATM, and that's a 10-foot drive aisle. The bypass one is 12 feet, so why not reduce the width of that 12-foot aisle, bump it out another foot or so, and then you get a little larger island, and then you could landscape that. And it's going to be easier to maintain than a 5-foot strip of grass.
I'll just make one comment about landscaping around the ATM. Security, for security issues, we have to be very sensitive to the landscaping we place around an ATM for screening it, and that's why the
Sure.
lighting's so important around it. So, the plantings would have to be low and not kind of encumber the ATM.
Mm-hmm.
All right, quick round on any concerns regarding the expansion of the island separating the ATM with the potential of low landscape to continue to have a site of the ATM for security purposes. Any concerns?
I'm not really following what you're saying, Robert. So the result is that the north-south width of that green space island, it just gets a little wider?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You talked about wanting to potentially get rid of that drive aisle. Well, there seems to be a reason for it to be there, but does it have to be 12 feet? Can it be 11 feet or
Yeah.
10 feet?
It's
I
fine.
mean, it's the bypass anyways. The major traffic is going through the other one, so just a thought.
All right, not seeing any objections to that.
I think it's a great idea.
All right, looking for a motion.
Well, I'm looking for a resolution on the island.
Well, what I'm hearing, yep.
Oh, well, that's what I disagree with you on, Robert, because I think, the idea of screening parking, you're saying you'd rather have the island than that 5-foot band along the north side of the parking lot. And they can put a shade tree in the middle of that band, and it just gets us our screening from the parking lot from Broadway, whereas that parking island, I don't think gets us anything from Broadway.
It's already screened with the wall.
Should we arm wrestle for it?
Leg wrestling.
No.
So what I think I'm hearing, and then we'll hopefully get to a motion here to move us forward, is the concern about landscaping and their meeting, and the part that they are expanding, they're not removing any screening.
Right.
And they're adding very little, that parking area is going to be lower than the grass that's there right now. And so the buffer that already exists from Broadway to Southtown sea of parking isn't being reduced or improved based on what's existing here.
At that location, there is no buffer, it's just grass.
And that's what I'm saying is that they're extending a small section here. They're not removing any trees that are currently a buffer. And what I'm suggesting is that we don't encroach on this idea of right of way and maintaining beyond the property line. That we look at expanding the island from the ATM with low planting, and the idea of increasing on the area of the north and northwest side of the building.
And then what about the island and the parking space?
And the island and the parking
That
space, to me,
doesn't-
is up to an applicant. I'm not as concerned about that.
Yeah.
I'd rather see the landscaping tucked by the building on the north and northwest side, expanding that island so it actually looks better than just a 2-foot strip of grass with some low plantings. Now, if they are wanting to put some additional screenage on the north side to work with staff to figure out where that would fit, it's not going to be anywhere near the ATM machine for the same reasons. So you're going to be tucking it, if it's anywhere, where the existing parking lot is,
Right.
which is, to their point, 3 feet above the parking structure. So that's my thoughts.
Okay.
But I'm not the
You
one making the motion.
broke the tie.
Yeah, Nancy?
Well, you know, I was just gonna, my understanding in terms of the parking is that there, from my read, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sure you will, is there's 9 required and there's 8 employees. Correct? So even if there were 9 required and 8 employees and every employee brought, even if you said the 9 were for non-employees, which we're not, but let's just, for the sake of the exercise, even if you were to say the 9 required were for public only and not employees, even when you add the employees and the requirement, you get 17 and they're listing 22 spaces. So it's considerably over, obviously what's required, given the size of the building. And I think anytime, I'm just going to support Rob here, I think anytime we can break up a parking lot with some additional green, that's a good thing. So, and it's a good thing in terms of shade too, so, in terms of the shade factor.
Is there someone willing to make a motion? Chris?
I will. I want to give a little explanation first. This is not normal tonight. This is a bit disjointed, and the reason being, all our comments that we're doing right now, we usually give to you, and then you come back for the next hearing and you address them. We don't design at the table. We give you our take on what you've presented to us, and then ask you to come back with a new design. But because of the time constraint tonight, we're kind of going back and forth and round and round. Normally, we'd like you to come back with a plan, address our comments, say, here, this is what we think will work. We tried to address your comments, and we just look at it and say yes or no. So just so you're aware, this is a little unusual situation for us trying to get it through in one hearing. And that's why you hear all this.
I understood.
So, I'll move approval based on finding of fact from staff. Condition 1 and 2 is written by staff. Condition 3, after it says to be submitted to the city's consultant engineer, add in and staff, so that we have in-house review of it also. Condition 4, 5, 6 is written by staff. Condition 7, with bullet point number 1, strike bullet point number 2 and add bullet point that says additional landscaping and island enhancements as discussed shall be submitted and approved by staff. Strike condition 8 Condition 9 remains as written. That'll be condition 8 now. Condition 9 will be that the sidewalk connection to Broadway shall be included and approved by staff. Condition 10 of LP Smart Side in lieu of Hardy Plank. And condition 11 that the remaining landscaping on Outlot 2 shall be maintained.
All right.
Is there a second?
Sonia?
Get a second.
Second?
Second.
All right.
I just have a question
Sure.
on your condition number 7, the added bullet point. You said add landscaping as discussed and island enhancements as discussed. Are you referring to widening the median by the ATM?
Yes, because I struck the other one, and when I say as discussed, we need a couple of trees somewhere towards Broadway. The northwest corner of the site is a perfect opportunity for that, and you can add some landscaping on the island. When I put it down as discussed, it allows Sonia the opportunity to work with you so you don't have to come back here and get a finished landscape plan. If her understanding of tonight is different than yours, then you can come back to get it approved, but you don't have to, and that's why I put it that way. And I think we had a fairly thorough discussion of landscaping, so hopefully we can do that. I don't think, certainly wasn't my intention that you completely screen the north side. I would like to see some landscaping on the north side a little more than what's there right now, and I think that would probably be the consensus. But it allows you to work with staff, and again, what we'd normally like to see is you come back to the last hearing and have a plan, say, hey, this is what we'd like, this is your building, this is your property, you're the one that, come back and say, this is what we like, this is based on your comments, what we think would work, and that's what we're looking to see. And Sonia will be very quick, if she says this isn't what we wanted, she'll be very quick to come back if you guys can't work it out. That's the thought on that. And it seemed like the consensus was that island, that island between 6 and 7 stalls is up to you. When you come back and get some trees around this and do some things, I'm sure for maintenance you'd rather not throw that island right in there, especially if we're trying to turn a trash truck around and get it in there.
Right.
Because I assume they'll come off hours and be able to slide right in
Pull
there.
right in.
Yeah,
So that island is not being required in this motion?
in this motion, the island's not being required.
But the enhancement of the median island.
Enhancement of the drive-through, whatever you want to call it, island, the landscaping of that, the landscaping of the northwest corner of the site, that's all being asked for, or where they come back and say they're going to fix the areas that we felt might need a little bit of work.
And the landscaping being maintained in Outlot 2 is also on there.
Absolutely,
Yes.
that's a separate condition just
Right.
to make it really clear.
Yep.
All right, any further questions, concerns, discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Passes, thank you. Don't worry, the sign's coming next. That's always the more enjoyable discussion, right? So that will move us right on to 6C, which is consideration of action on a sign permit request by Chase Bank for the new building and site signage at 2251 Broadway and Outlot 2 of CSM 6804. So similar to the previous item, if you can just walk through first kind of the proposal, and then we'll jump right into discussion.
Certainly. And forgive me if I take a few moments with this. I'm not as familiar with the signage package, so we're both going along with this. Okay, obviously we have the cover page for our signage package. First page, or rather page 2 of the signage package, what we're okay, starting up in the northwest corner where we have the existing monument sign, our proposal would be to remove that and put in place a new Chase prototype monument sign. That is sign E1. Sign E6 is a temporary coming soon sign that would be posted up in front of it. That would obviously be set up much sooner than the monument sign. On this initial signage package proposal, we have 2 exterior signs. We'll talk about the other 2 on the next page of paperwork. One on the east in the north corner, or sorry, one on the west in the north corner, and one on the east in the south corner over the existing entry. There currently is Radio Shack signage in both of these locations, so we will be replacing Chase signage up there. Continuing on this signage package, we have our accessibility signs for our accessible stalls. And I did notice in the comment about a van accessible stall, and we will accommodate for that. The other thing that we will need to do is coordinate. We will coordinate the site plan that the signage is showing with the actual site plan. We did have to move the accessible stall further north to deal with our grading issue with the new entry up there at that location. Unfortunately, they didn't have the updated site plan when they prepared the package. The remaining signs, we have a non-illuminated directional signage here at our first entry. We have a non-illuminated directional signage here at our second entry. And at our third egress only, we have our do not enter signs, one on either side. At the ATM, we have a height restriction headache bar. And then at the ATM, we'll have our Chase signature canopy. And then, so that's the basic signage package. What we also asked for in the signage package is the addition of a wall-mounted sign on the south and a wall-mounted sign on the north as well. And then awnings, metal awnings over our new windows and our existing storefront. I believe everybody's seen this site numerous times, so we'll just kind of go right past it. Page 5 of the signage package deals with interior signage, accessible signage for the restrooms, accessible signage for the, and exit signage for the doors and the entries. If anybody has any questions on any of that, I can speak to it. Moving on is our proposed, oh, excellent. Moving on is our proposed monument sign to replace the Radio Shack sign. So we have it at a 5-foot overall height with a 9.6 overall length of sign, with just the Chase logo and the Chase octagon. Moving on, we have our proposed 2 signs on the east and west elevation based on the existing condition of the building. Just to kind of show you the scale and how they would look against what the building is now. And then those same signs with the proposed building changes, so the raising of the parapets, straightening of the parapets, the removal of the blue angled metal roofing, and we also have in here our canopy over the entry so that you can see the relationship of the lettering to the canopy and to the height of the parapet. And since we like to have lots of pages in our signage package, here is the proposed additional signs on the north and south elevations on the existing building. And moving right along, the proposed signs on the north and south, also showing the proposed east and west elevation signs, in addition to the metal awnings on the west elevation and the south elevation. On page 11 of our signage, we have our directional signage. We have on the inside of the suite, or sorry, inside of the building is our EATM, so there's a sign panel on it. And then this is illustrating our proposed signage for the accessible stalls, our proposed signage for the coming soon, and then our proposed directional signage as well. Page 12 addresses the exterior remote ATM. We have our headache bar. We have our vendor canopy with our proposed octagon logo at the top and our Chase logo on the side. And then we have our do not enter signs for that part of the road. Page 13 is interior signage and exterior door signage for accessibility. And then we follow with just existing conditions. So you can see some shots of the existing building and what it looks like currently. With the current landscaping, current conditions of the need of repair and painting on the EFIS, and, well, self-explanatory there, I believe.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll start in reverse order, Rob. Absolutely.
Per the code, one wall sign is allowed per use. The code also provides an allowance that more than one wall sign may be allowed if the building is designed with more than one front or fronts on more than one street. The existing building has 2 signs, so my comments say I have no problem with at least 2 signs. Also, there are examples around the city where 3 signs have been approved. Qdoba, for example, has 3 wall signs and a ground sign. Starbucks has 3 wall signs. I wrote that 3 wall signs for Chase seems appropriate given the visibility of the building, consistency with approvals for Qdoba and Starbucks, and because the proposed Chase south elevation with the new architecture presents a signage area that would fit well. A sign on the north side seems overdone, especially given that the ground sign is right in front of it. And 4 wall signs would also not be consistent with other approvals granted around the city. The ground sign and directional signs meet the requirements, and those directional signs I'm referring to are the ones further west at the first access closest to the building. The do not enter signs are 8.5 feet tall. Typically, we don't regulate regulatory signs like stop signs, ADA signs, so the question is, are these regulatory signs like that, or are they directional signs? So I added the definition from the code. Directional signs are defined as they aid in directions to parts of the site or building, such as entries or exits. If the Plan Commission feels this fits that definition, then they should probably be limited to 4 feet in height rather than 8.5. The metal awnings are regulated in the code, and I have no concerns with those that are proposed. On the ATM, I don't have any concerns with the Chase sign, given that the ATM is so far away from the building. An additional wall sign there doesn't seem to be a problem for identification, but we do not allow rooftop signs. They're prohibited in all districts in the sign code, so removing that octagonal logo on top of the ATM would be consistent with the code. So overall, the recommendations for approval with a detailed landscaping sign for the ground sign, the rooftop sign on the ATM is not allowed. I have recommended 3 signs are approved, not the north elevation, and the do not enter signs are reduced to 4 feet in height.
All right, thank you. Rob?
I would agree with city staff about comments about allowing the north elevation sign. I have no problem with that.
The north or the south?
The north.
So
South.
city-
So, we'd be happy to
the
have
recommendation.
To verify,
Yes.
the north
Yes, yes,
one
yes,
was
north.
next to the
Excuse me.
landscape ground sign. If I had
The north, isn't that what I said? Ground sign looks good. Could talk about landscaping again. We could have a strip that goes about 200 feet to the west, coming up to. I think it looks good, and I would just agree with staff comments, recommendations.
Chris?
Excuse me, I agree with the vast majority of staff comments. I have a question. We don't usually allow off-premise signs. Why would we do that here?
Are you talking about the ground sign?
Ground signs not on their property.
I didn't notice that initially. Can the applicant maybe confirm if this is replacing the existing sign in the same location? Is the existing?
That is the intent, to replace the existing sign in the same location.
So I think in multiple instances on Broadway and Monona Drive, we've allowed the ground sign in right-of-way. In this case, Dane County would have to allow that, which for many of these existing signs they have, and I can check if that would remain allowable.
Okay. And on the rest of the signage, number one, it's a really nice plan, and I really like your logos and the way you do it. It's not garish, it's understated. I like that part about it. I agree with staff that 3 signs are plenty. That's a lot. That's the most we've ever allowed for wall signs. And when you're on Broadway, you'll see it coming east and west on the landscape ground sign. So I'm torn on it. It wouldn't hurt to fix up that facade, but since you're going to landscape it
Right.
so well, you wouldn't see that sign anyhow. So it's a moot point. On the I agree on the do not enter signs. They should be at the 4 foot. There's no reason to have them up at 8 feet. Yeah. On the ATM signage, the one thing I would disagree with is the additional signage. We just told Summit Credit Union on Monona Drive they could not put additional wall signage on their ATM. We took it off, or their drive-through lanes. We took it off there. And there's so much signage on here. It's well done, but every entry sign says Chase. Every do not enter sign says Chase. I don't think there's any mistaking that this is a Chase branch. And as you drive in there, the signs actually in all those driveways show exactly where to go to the ATM. So I'm not sure that we need to put a 4th wall sign, if you will, on the property to sign the side of the ATM.
And Sonia, can you verify what was approved for the Summit Credit Union? Originally, I know there was a sign requested, but did a logo end up?
They took all signage off of the ATM
For the
facade.
the entire drive-up structure.
The
they
drive-up
took all the
structure.
signage off.
It's behind the building.
And for me, this would be very consistent with the action we took there. And I suspect every bank in Monona would like to put additional signage on their drive-up canopies and ATMs and such. I don't think this is a case where you don't know you're going to the Chase ATM because of the entry signage that all says Chase, and arrows to get to the ATM, and everything else. It doesn't seem to me that there'd be any confusion where you were heading.
All right, anything else, Chris?
That's it.
Griff?
I agree that the directional sign should be held to 4 feet minimum or maximum. I don't have any problem with the additional sign on the south side. I agree that our precedent really has been that we would not permit the four signs, and I think we should stick by that. I'm less concerned about the Chase logo on the side of the ATM, because the ATM is apart from the building. Although I do note that the ATM console itself identifies it as Chase in the forefront, so I don't feel too strongly about that. That's my comment.
Susan?
Yeah, I basically agree with the staff recommendations, and I'm sort of ambivalent about the Chase signage on the ATM. I think, yeah, as long as it's on the front of the machine itself, that's probably enough, but I don't have a real problem with leaving it there, except it is inconsistent with what we did, so I guess I have to go along with whatever people thought. And the only thing I had thought, and I know I mentioned this with Summit too, and we ended up on the north side, maybe not putting the word, but because I was looking at the building itself as it would be nice to have something there, and I was just thinking of putting the octagon, just the octagon there would be sort of a compromise. But I know we consider that a sign, so I'm not sure.
On the
I
north
thought
side.
on the north side, not the word Chase, but just the octagon, just because it'd be something there, moved over a little bit maybe, or something. I don't know. It was just a thought, because just because of the fact that it looks so plain. And I know we're going to have some landscaping, but either way. Otherwise, I thought the sign on the three other sides was good. So.
Any comment about the height on the do not enter?
Yeah, I thought the 4 feet sounded better to me. I mean, that's like driving height. It seemed. Not sure what the rationale is for that, other than it probably looks a little nicer to have it slightly lower, and it's very visible, I think. That's that height.
Dale?
I agree with staff's comments on everything, particularly the removal of the logo on top of the drive-in. The sign on the ATM is, I kind of look at it as more as a graphic than I do a sign, so I'm kind of indifferent to that. You might make note to your sign contractor that the handicap signs are 11 feet to the top. Those are typically vehicle oriented, so they would be like 6 usually. But 11 feet to the top of the handicap sign is like, the handicap signs are going to be towards the top of the building. Pretty weird. Otherwise, it's fine. Oh, and on the do not enter sign, it says Ace.
Yeah.
Probably don't want it to get produced that way. So that's fine.
All right. Thanks, Dale. Nancy?
I concur with the staff comments. Agree with the 4 foot. Kind of permitting extra signage on the mark elevation. The ATM I'm kind of ambivalent about as well. Could go either way. I do appreciate the fact that it's separate from the building, but I also sensitive to the fact that we have a lot of banks in Monona, and we haven't permitted that kind of signage for other banks, so I think I'd probably err on the side of recognizing there are other ways in which it's currently identified.
So my comments are agree with the third sign on the building, particularly on the south side. The north side with the logo that Susan brought up. I find that to be an interesting aspect, and
I like
I'll
that.
leave it alone. What's up, Tim?
I like that idea.
The consistency with the do not enter signs to match the E4 and E17 seem to make sense, so they'll match the other directional signs. The concern with the graphic or sign on the side of the ATM, I see it, this site is very different than the Summit Credit Union site, where you are pulling into that site and it's extremely clear that anything behind the building where the parking is and the structure that's behind that parking lot is all part of the same property and the same company, as well as the architecture of that building. I think denotes that it's matching. And so with those differences, I see this as a very long, narrow site where you're pulling in one of two different access points and then a do not enter access point. That entering here and knowing that there's consistency amongst that long strip, I would encourage us to allow that additional graphic. That was all the comments I had. Chris?
Do we have consensus on the logo?
The logo on top of the ATM?
The logo on the north elevation of the building?
And by logo, just the octagon is what I was talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
It sounds like myself, Dale, and Susan have indicated that it was okay.
Yeah, and
Is it this?
another thing to break, besides good landscaping, another thing to break up that north wall is good.
As long as there's big trees by, right? Griff?
I have no problem with it.
Rob?
Isn't this exactly what we told Summit they couldn't do? And they took out the sign and then they just wanted the logo, didn't they?
And I think we did allow it there. I thought, my
Did we?
recollection was we did.
I can't remember. And
Just the logo.
I sort of want to be consistent on this because it'd be very hypocritical to say.
See, that's
It doesn't bother me. I mean, going
way
I
off.
thought we.
regarding this site, it doesn't bother me. I think it's a fine graphic. I sort of felt the same with Summit, but I don't recall what we did.
You really can't compare the two sites. I mean, one has one frontage, one has three, so, you know, it's just completely different.
But if
Graphic program for the two.
I disagree in regards to what we're talking about, this graphic, I think it's very similar to just
I
put
wouldn't
that
bet
logo.
the farm on it, but I thought we allowed the graphic on.
We allowed an additional logo there.
I think we did, with just the logo.
We did.
Yeah.
If that's the case, I'm totally fine with it, but if we didn't, it would be a little unfair. But
I know we allowed an additional logo on the Monona Drive face.
Right.
That's what I
Whether
was
or not
talking
we
about,
allowed
right.
it on the drive up is a
No,
different.
no.
Oh, no, it wasn't the drive
not
up. The
drive
face
up,
is what I was
no.
talking about.
Okay.
We
Yeah,
allowed
no
the
drive up.
drive.
And that was a building, for consistency's sake, that's why we're talking about this, that's a building that only fronts on one street, and so they have a sign on both sides of the building and the logo on the front side.
Right, and it was kind of for the same reason. It looked nice. I mean, it just added a feature, which I think this would do.
And it was the idea of north-south traffic, I mean,
Right.
similar conversations about where this site, where it makes sense for the building. So, does that help, Rob?
yeah, I was talking about the drive-through. I thought that,
Oh, no, yeah.
No, we didn't.
No, we
allow
didn't.
The logo on the drive-through.
and I thought they came back on their second submittal where it was just the circle logo of Summit Credit Union on the drive-through. But I'm drawing just off memory here, so I don't. But like I said, I don't have a problem with it. I just would like to be consistent.
If I could, the consistency would be that this is on the building and not the drive-through.
Right.
And then the other issue I'd look at on this is I think square footage, they're getting pretty close to their max on the building. If there were 4 signs, they'd be over, but maybe with the logo, it'd be right in, because when I looked at your numbers, you're almost 2/3 of the way there. With 2 signs, you get 3 signs, you're almost at the maximum square footage. With the logo, it might be right at it or just barely topping it. Am I about right?
200 is the maximum square footage on the building.
200? Oh, they say 260, so then they're going to be over it. They've got 163 with just 2 signs, so we're also then exceeding the maximum square footage allowed.
In that they're including the ground sign.
On page 2 of their submittal.
They're including the ground sign in that total.
Ah,
The 200 maximum is for the building.
okay. And the 163 includes the ground sign?
Yeah.
So how many square feet is the Chase with the logo? Must be 57.6.
Yep.
So if we take out the monument sign at 47, and add another 56, we're good. We probably can still make it with the logo. Yes?
Actually, the 2 of the signs are smaller. They're reduced size letters, so they're only actually 36.9 square feet.
This would be the south elevation, or which one?
The north and south elevations are both reduced letter set size, so they're only a 24-inch high letter set
Then
instead
we
of a
would be
30-inch,
within
so
our
they'd be
max.
36.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. right, so it sounds like there's some consistency or some consensus around the science package on the building per se, with the additional logo on the north side, and on the south side, the reduced letter height to allow the total signage on the buildings to still fall within the 200. It sounds like there may have been some confusion when people went around regarding the separate issue of the signage or graphic on the ATM, and if people see that as an allowable use given the location on the site, as well as with the other signage, and if it makes sense. Rob, I'll go in reverse order.
I'm gonna say I'm okay with the logo on the north side, and hope that we're consistent with Summit. As far as the ATM's concerned, I would agree with staff recommendations with that.
Chris?
Can I just make a motion? We've established everything. Move approval with conditions 1, 2, 3 as recommended by staff. Condition 4 is written by staff, but then at the end say north elevation is allowed as a logo only. Condition 5 is written by staff and add and match other directional signs. And condition 6 that the county permits for the landscape ground sign shall be required.
I can second that motion.
All right.
And that, by the way it's made, allows the graphics on the ATM because the majority thought that was perfectly fine.
Yep.
And it allows a logo on the north side without the chase.
That would make me very happy.
All right.
Are they here? Are them here?
No?
No, we don't have anyone from the signage package here.
Okay.
Any concerns, questions? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. And we move on to item 6D, which is a public hearing on the request by Woodspring Suites for zoning permit site plans and building elevations for a 123-room hotel at 2704 Royal Avenue. I know we have a few folks here tonight to walk us through, and we'll kind of do a similar piece where a public hearing, you can walk us through an overview of the plans, and then we'll move into item E, which will allow us to dig into some of the details.
Understood.
So when you guys are joining up at the podium, just make sure you introduce yourself, and we'll go from there.
My name is Steve McAllister, and I represent the investment group in the development process. And we've gotten your comments back on this package that you received. You probably should have something to do with the Wood Springs, a recent Wood Springs hotel. We received the comments back, and we're well aware that we need to address a lot of things. The intent of tonight was only to convey a concept idea for Royal and Mangrove. We are really excited about this site. We think it's a great site for this product, and we wanted to gauge how the city felt about that. We're well aware that the parking lot and landscaping and all those items we need to address, and we're prepared to do that. So I'm here tonight to listen to your concerns. If you've got specific concerns about the development, construction, the process, I'll try to answer any questions I can. Chris is here to share about the brand and the management of that brand. So I'm going to turn it over to him now, and I'll be available to answer any of the questions that you have as well.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Chris Arguello, and I represent Wood Springs Property Management. I'm the regional director, and I would be responsible for the operations of this building. I have a short video that gives you a little bit of what the building will look like. So I'd like to play that if I have your permission.
Absolutely.
Set this up to play.
This will test our AV skills.
Yeah. I'm not getting.
No, you're.
Oh, I am playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're up there.
Okay, but I can't get it to play. It's actual video. It's not playing. Is it playing? Oh, there we go. I think we should be.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, go ahead and we'll get the volume up as well. Excuse my.
No.
we can just make it louder. So this is just really an overview of the building. All right. Well, I know there were a little bit about us as a management company. My company represents the largest franchisee of the Wood Springs brand. We are the Wood Springs corporate office. We manage about 110 properties now. I currently oversee 9, and I concern myself with all operational functions, including the sales effort as well for our company. Some of the concerns we've heard that I've brought to my attention are the nightly rates, the safety, and the general operations of who's running the building and what we do. We're a nightly hotel. We do reduce the rate, though, as if folks stay longer times. For example, many of our rates and proposed for this area will be between $95 and $105 a night. If someone says to us, hey, I'd like to stay 3 or 4 nights, we would then reduce the rate depending on their length of stay. So the longer you stay, the less you pay per night. We win in the long run, though.
Yeah.
And as you saw from our overview, all of our rooms do come with a 2-burner stovetop, microwave, full-size refrigerator, so it will help those folks that travel with us. And that group, particularly traveling nurses, construction. We do have some folks that are transient. Their apartment is ready or to vacate and their house is ready in a week or 2. We have a few of those as well. Predominantly construction, traveling nurses, laborers are our biggest customer base, Staffing, we run typically 7 full-time associates, and our proposal for here is anywhere between 15 to 20 in peak season, reducing that in non-peak season. As I said, guest stay anywhere between 1 night, 7 nights, 8 nights, whatever they need. We do have a dedicated sales force that will help us open this property in terms of designing a sales attack, if you will, sales blitz. We have our corporate office that will bring folks in. The ownership representation will have some of their own sales folks, and I will have my team as well to help market the area and introduce the Wood Springs brands to not only your town, but the entire state of Wisconsin, since we don't have one yet. So we'll be out there to show us who we are. During construction, Madison Hospitality and Wood Springs will work together. Should be roughly a 7 to 10 month process to build it from moving dirt to opening, and we'll have roughly 300 contractors in and out. We do like to use local vendors for as many of these projects as we can. We do have rigorous brand standards. We do have an annual inspection that is run from an external company called LRA. They'll come in and inspect everything from public spaces, back of the house, safety, life safety issues, guest safety issues, those things, as well as my own inspections. I conduct them for our brand as well on all of my properties as well. A fixed portion of the revenue will go to long-term upgrades. So typically 4% is what most banks require for us to have for a long-term FF&E fund, which we will require of that of Madison Hospitality as well. We do have several programs in place that ensure training. We do have a brand training center called Wood Springs Academy, where our folks can get online, our employees, and learn not only the basic customer service skills of running a hotel, but again, back to the life safety issues of our guests. And if there's any requirements here in the city, I noticed they had an AED here, we would be trained on that. I'm trained on that as well, and we would require the manager and several staff to be trained on that as well if required. We do have up to 17 cameras in most of our locations, especially our newer brands. We have them on all 4 floors, entrances. A couple of properties that I've worked with do have some external cameras, limited in that exposure though. 1 key per registered guest over the age of 18. So all 4 entrances are key carded for entrances with video camera. And if you and your wife were there, both of you would register with us. We'd have your ID on file so we know who's in the building. So we also educate our guests not to let someone in behind them. Again, it's all about safety of the guests and our staff. Window lighting, HVAC systems, water heaters, and appliances are energy efficient, as you would expect. Security lighting, excuse me, I'm not the builder, so I'll have him expand on this if we need be, but the US DOE LZ2 requirements for energy efficient lighting we will have. Typical build, as I said, is about 300 construction contractors in and out throughout the 10-month process. When construction is complete, full-time and part-time and contract-based jobs, ongoing maintenance of the property, we would use local vendors for soda vending, laundry. We do our own laundry for employees, but we would have a laundry mat, for lack of better terms, and we would use a local vendor for that as well, including lawn care as well as snowplow throughout the winter. I think the biggest thing about us is that we embrace the community. I represent a couple of other ownership groups, one of them being Holiday Properties out of South Bend, Indiana. They run 2 Chicagoland properties, and they're opening up a 3rd. One of the things I love about this company that I'm working with is that they understand the importance of the community. We do a lot of training with our police department as well, and especially in the Darien and Romeoville area, where our staff works with the fire department and police department in conjunction with any issues. The goal here is to provide a quiet, clean, and safe environment for our guests that come in and out of your town. What questions can I answer for you all from an operator standpoint? And of course, if you have any construction, Steve will jump in as well.
All right. If people are all right, we'll close 6D and move on to 6E, which is the pre-hearing conference on the request by Wood Springs Suites for zoning permit, site plans, and building elevations for 123-room hotel at 2704 Royal Avenue. Sonia?
So we've been given plans that show a 123-room hotel, 4 stories, 14,000 square feet, a certain number of parking stalls. I think it's unclear of whether some of those things are specifically tailored to the site or not, so most of my comments don't really address those things. I get into parking a little bit in the staff comments, but starting with just the general land use and whether it's appropriate for this area, the Plan Commission should discuss if it's appropriate for the zoning district and surrounding properties. Department heads did receive the plans. There were no immediate concerns returned to me. I spoke specifically with the police chief, whether he had concerns with an extended stay model in this location. It's a relatively isolated location, but also highly visible off of the Beltline and at this corner property. He didn't have any immediate concerns. We talked a little bit about its proximity to the liquor availability at the Super America, I believe it was, that gas station, and the Walmart, which is one of our highest call volume for police calls in the city. And again, he didn't have any immediate concerns. Plan Commission can discuss comments on building massing and materials, although we don't have a lot of detail on that right now. Any direction on site design elements, including landscaping. And parking, what's proposed on this concept is that 115 parking spaces would be included. There are 123 rooms. Based on the code, that would be a shortage of 23 stalls per the minimum.
Can I respond to a couple things?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Number one, the comments that you made on the list, I read through those. I'm quite confident we can address all those. The building prototype has got to be massaged a little bit on the site. And actually, in this concept plan, we did reduce it down a little bit. So I'm guessing we've got about 115 rooms. Now, we need to go back to our consultants and actually engage them to do landscaping plan, site plan, parking lots, stalls, and I'm confident we can facilitate everything you noted on your review. It may require that we reduce this footprint of the building somewhat.
Thank you. All right, general concerns? I won't pick on any order.
For starters, I think this would be a good site for a hotel. I think your visibility to the belt line is outstanding. I think you got to come back in a little bit, but I think because of your visibility, it would be a great spot. I know Alliant Energy Center alone sells all the hotels around here out for at least 6 weeks out of the year. So I think there's probably a demand. So I think it's good for that. I think it's a little dense for the site, and I think all the things that staff brought up, I think she had a very good review of the overview of this. I think you need more parking, you need more green space. You saw the applicant before, you need parking lot islands. This isn't a case where we waive that, where you can have 40 stalls.
We
in a
learned
row.
that.
So I think to fit the building on the site, you've got to work on it a little bit. As far as the building itself, because it's so visible, for me, I would like to see more masonry on it. I'd like to see something that really shows well from the belt line. I know when Walmart built, they did a fabulous job of it. I don't know that we go to that extent, but for me, a little more masonry, dress it up a little bit for the view. Staff talked about it. If there's any other things you can do with some of your prototypes, articulation or anything, just make it really stand out. And that serves you. Curb appeal for people to stop at a hotel. Curb appeal is huge. And when they see that and they like it, that's where they want to stay. No matter how nice it is inside, you've got to have curb appeal.
Understood. Yep.
That's it for me.
I don't have many comments. I would echo more masonry would be good. I think it's a great use for the site. Parking is my biggest concern, but it sounds like you're in the works of trying to address that, which is great. Conceptually, I think it's a great use. So.
Nancy?
I would concur with everything that's been said related to curb appeal and dressing it up. I find it a little plain, and I'm wondering in that regard if there's you mentioned the number of hotels that you're managing corporately, and I just was curious, since everything that we're looking at here, or most everything that we're looking at here is animated, or your video certainly. Are there hotels in the area, or hotels that we could, if we went on the website, that we could see where
Yes,
maybe you have dressed up?
Yes, our website actually has actual video, or pictures of the hotel itself, so it's not just a mock.
This
So
is
if you-
the cover of this is actual picture of one that was just recently built, so that's a photograph.
Okay. Are there any ones in the area?
The closest one would be the two Chicagoland properties,
Okay.
Romeoville
Okay.
and Darien, Illinois.
Okay.
I happen to manage those. I would welcome any of you to come visit and tell me when you want to meet, and let's go take a tour.
No, we don't have to. Don't have to go to, sorry.
But you have to go to our website.
But I think it does, it definitely needs some dressing up. I think it's a good use of the site. To me, it's it's great use in terms of the belt line. As somebody staying there, it's pretty dark and quiet at night, which is to say almost all the businesses in that area are shut down. There's no real eatery in that area, so people staying there, I think it might feel a little bit
Well, each room,
vacuous.
if I may jump in, each
Yeah.
room is equipped with a 2-burner stovetop
Yeah.
microwave and a
Yeah.
full-size
Yeah.
refrigerator.
Yeah.
And that'll be addressed at check-in with our guests as well.
Yeah,
And the site's well lit.
yeah. But I think it's overall, I think it's a great use of the site, and I think that I look forward to seeing more in the time ahead. More details.
Dale?
Architecturally, I respectfully felt it was a bit weak, so I did go to your website to see that this is very consistent with all of them that have been built. I mean, this prototype is kind of it, right? So there really were no options to this look.
We've actually talked with the brand about some enhancements, And we've looked at that at other locations too. So we're not averse to doing something that's a little more masonry or whatever we need to do. We'd like to keep that to a minimum if we can, but whatever we need to do to make the building nice, we'll do it.
How do you research, or how do you determine what is an appropriate access to a property like this? This is really just kind of an interest of my own. I mean, so this exit, you get there by exiting on Southtown, coming down Southtown Boulevard, going through the roundabout, taking Industrial Drive west, right, and then turning right on Mangrove and coming back up to the Beltline. How do you guys determine when that's too much?
I don't think we've really done a traffic study of the area. We looked at this site, the investors looked at the site and said, hey, this is a great site.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we can do a traffic analysis of the area and see what kind of flow we're getting from certain areas. We can do that, but we haven't done that for this site.
So there's nothing you look at and say this is too great of a distance the exit.
That's a really good question, and I think we've just looked at this site and said this is a great site for this hotel. Yeah. We haven't looked at it and said, is it hard to get to? Sharif?
Are you waving, or are you? Oh.
He wants his turn on YouTube too.
I can answer that question because I have actually, personally, I have done a little research as far as like the project which is built right off Southtown Drive. Right off Stoughton Road, the sleep-in.
That's exactly the one I'm talking about. I'm like,
and they have 87.9% occupancy.
That place is
and
packed.
They're adding another hotel right next to it. It's
saw that.
JBM, Jim Mikowski with the security company. He's a very good friend of mine. So I know the numbers. He's not giving me any bull. So he actually asked me, he goes, Sharif, you should build this in that area rather than going anywhere else. But I like your location better because we are very close to the Alliance Service Center and WPS.
Yeah.
And WPS he's also involved in your hotel, which is American Inn. He's part owner there. So he said he's completely full all the time there because of WPS. So I thought WPS would be a great magnet for us. And I mean, because Alliance Service is in and out, but with all the proximity to the hospitals, because this branch is basically with traveling nurses, doctors, and technicians. So I thought this will be much easier for them with the bike path behind under the viaduct. So that will be perfect. So that will kind of bring people in more in this location than actually on that location.
So I was going to say the sleep-in is exactly what I was thinking about. I always thought that was
I know,
bizarre,
I couldn't believe it. I used to ask him, I said, who told you to open that? In 2008, when the economy was taking a dive. And he said, 75% occupancy.
Yeah.
And then now I asked him actually 5 days ago, he said, I'm right now 87.9 consistent. So I think this will be a great magnet in this new
This is more accessible than the sleep-in is.
Absolutely.
So.
And there's nothing there. You have Toby's and then the dark drive, and people still go there. So I'm amazed. So I just have to put my 2 cents in.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Anymore, I think.
It was more like a nickel, by the way. Go ahead.
I think anymore.
Oh, you gotta.
People,
You need to be up at the mic so anybody can hear you.
Everybody's got Google Maps on their device.
Yeah.
You gotta go up to the mic. No. We pretend we can't hear anybody unless they speak in the mic.
I think that anymore, everybody, either they case the thing over and they know where they're going to stay. So if they can't find it, they just Google it with their phone. And there's a lot of places that are hard to find. Even like coming back here tonight, it's the first time back here. There's a lot of turns where I really don't think getting back in there. I've driven back in there, first time. It was without a hotel sitting there. It was still relatively easy to get there.
Oh, yeah.
But, everybody's using their phones to find everything now. So I really don't think we have a big concern with it. But I understand where you're coming from there.
I was just
you
curious.
do have a few turns to make.
Curious.
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you. Susan?
I actually Googled it today, and I agree with you. I mean, it got very clear directions. It was really easy, and it's the first exit off the roundabout, because I thought, oh, you got to go around that. That roundabout, to me, is one of the most difficult ones to negotiate until you're used to it. But this is literally the first exit off of it, so it's pretty easy. And then it was very clear. And my only concern, really, when I looked at it was the parking. And I think if you downsize the building a little bit, you can work that out. And
The
again,
layout of that building is just scaled, so
Right.
there wasn't a lot of, engineering that went into laying that out. So it's quite probable that it'll work. So it was just all scaled off the area
Okay.
and the plat that we were given.
right. And I think otherwise, yeah, I liked it, liked the concept. I think it looks good.
I like the concept. I think this is a good site for it. I'm less concerned about the difficulty of getting there because of its high visibility from the belt line, and I think people will zero in on it, and it will be logical how to get there because of its prominence. So I think it would be a good addition. I do agree that the parking has to be addressed.
Thank you, understood.
All right, are there any questions you have for us or information that would be helpful as you guys go into your next steps?
Well, first of all, thank you. We're excited that you're excited. So you want to go somewhere that you're celebrated, and we're off on a good foot here. So thank you. We'll begin to address all the things that you said, and then I'll get back to you about next step.
All right, thank you guys. All right, and we can move on to item 7A. Staff report regarding the status of development projects.
Next meeting is August 28th. I think by the time we get to the September 11th meeting, this parking lot will be under construction. So this library parking lot will be under construction by September 11th, so we'll have to park on the street or across at the community center. City Hall parking lot will be done at the beginning of September. Other projects, Craig Frank, he had the mixed-use development at 5103 St. Teresa Terrace, Monona Drive. He will be appearing before CDA on August 22nd with his TIF request, so we'll get feedback on that. He did go to the Public Works Committee, and the feedback there was favorable to use of St. Teresa Terrace right-of-way for parking. They did not want to vacate it, but they were okay with some sort of exclusive permit to use the right-of-way for residents of his building, rather than just have it open to the public. Other projects that will be coming forward, we have the riverfront items that are outstanding, landscaping and lighting plans. I'm not sure when those will come back. I will have the planning department operating budget at the next meeting, which is always very, very brief and limited and not exciting, but we're required to have it here. I also was notified today that all of those code revisions that we made about a year ago, those are ready. They're finalized by the codification company, but the city attorney said we need to bring that back to Plan Commission again for one more review. So that should be an easy kind of make sure it's correct as we approved it last time, and I plan to do that in one read, and then that will be finally adopted by the council.
And will that item be the red line version or just the straight
Final.
Final?
Can we get a red line with it?
Yes.
It would be
Yep.
helpful.
Okay.
A year later.
Yep.
Do people need those in print copy or is PDF sufficient?
Print.
One print?
Yeah, I probably like.
You know, like,
I tend to
Thank you.
write on
all the old people
All the
on
old
the
people,
board,
that's
we'd
right.
like to
Everyone.
write.
No,
I want a PDF.
All the thorough people on the commission that want to have it side by side and go back and forth readily.
That's
fine.
exactly right, thank you.
Plus, every time I do that yellow highlight on my screen, it
yeah.
totally messes things up.
He's got white out all over his phone.
Just some other project updates. Cozy Home was before us a while ago. They are working on the interior of the building north of the PDQ site, and they painted over that mural, so they're going. Taco Bell was also before us a long time ago. They will start in September on their exterior updates. Summit Credit Union, no problems. Quick Trip, formerly PDQ project, is still moving forward, but I don't have any details. Riverfront, just a couple of items. We just heard last week that we received the grant that we applied for through WEDC for their CDI grant. That's Community Development Investment Grant, and that's a $250,000 grant. So that's a nice one that'll help the project. We also bid out and awarded the MMSD relocation that was awarded to Speedway, and our estimated cost was $1.6 million, but the bid came in at $844,000. So
Plus the pipe.
plus the pipe at 139, so still under $1 million. So that's some good savings there, in addition to the contribution from MMSD of $250,000. Last week we had the bid opening for the demo on that project. Our estimate was 1.3 to 1.6 million, and the low bidder was Robinson Brothers at just under $1 million.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
So now, I don't even know if you're able to address this, or if they're even finished, but what's it, Cozy Home? The paint job on the side of that building is horrendous. And I don't know if they're planning on a second coat or not, but I mean, it's not much of an improvement over a mural, a weak mural that was there.
Okay.
And so I don't know if, if we even have the authority to say anything, but I mean, it just didn't cover it all, and it just doesn't look good. And
Before they
it's
apply for their
so
occupancy
prominent.
permit, I'll make sure that everything was done per the approved plans and done well.
Okay, cool.
Other items?
Somewhere I saw in your comments, the Quick Trip is likely not going to put the car wash in, but they'll still develop that whole. Is that,
That's something they told me, don't take it as fact. It
Oh,
sounds
okay.
like it's changed again, so we
Okay.
just don't have any
Okay.
detail. Yep.
All right, that's fine.
And is it fair to say if there are substantial changes from what was approved here, they would need to come back for revision?
Yes.
So,
And it's sitting, I know initially it was sitting silent because of the death of the wife of the person who was doing the demo. Is it sitting silent now because of the transfer of ownership?
Reasons could be many things, but I've heard both the personal issue with PDQ and the acquisition by Quick Trip.
Okay.
Quick Trip has a completely different
Yeah.
architectural model
Yeah.
than PDQ. I think it could be a really nice change. I would expect a little more of an urban feel to a Quick Trip that goes in there. I think that might be nice.
so likely more to come. Any other questions, comments on that? Chris?
When I went to look at the, excuse me, the Chase Bank site, I see that the Starion Bank landscape ground sign that's off premises is still up. Wasn't there a twilight on that?
Yes.
When was that?
That's 2018.
Oh, it is.
It goes with their lease.
No, it was. We gave them. I thought
We
it
gave
was
them
only
certain amount of time
a year
because
or
they were
so
looking for some
to.
additional property.
Oh, their lease does end in 2018. I thought it aligned with the lease, but I can
So
check.
Okay. Just curious. I thought we only gave them a certain time period since
Okay.
we'd really allowed it for the WPS campus. And then once it changed hands, that was.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
By the way, I did find the sheet that I was looking for where I was like, I know I remember seeing a picture of the ATM taking over that entire buffer. In this view, I mean,
The top, isn't it?
it's very different.
Yeah.
And
It's,
in
you know,
there-
She
it's-
looks
it
just like her
says
dad
it's
without the top
literally,
on.
it
She's
says
not
all the
quite
way
as
out
cute.
except for a tiny little bit, so.
No, that's just the parcel outline.
Okay.
But
Yeah, but the way it's pointed.
The way it's pointing, it looks like it's taking over the whole.
And in their materials they submitted, it did say "in future development."
Sounds like we have some clarity within the motion.
Oh, we do.
To help prevent that, but agree, the materials are very thorough, but also added some of the
Sonia,
other questions.
how do we already know that there's not a meeting on the 25th, and why would that be?
I will be away
On what? Doing what?
on my honeymoon. So, wedding is September 16th, and then I'm going to Ireland to visit Bob.
What a great honeymoon.
I know.
We could have the meeting and you could Skype in on your honeymoon.
No,
I
thanks.
think.
That'd be
That's what
popular.
she would want.
So So would it be helpful, I'm not sure if you keep the condition of approval spreadsheet, at some time, maybe one of these next two, if it's,
Sure.
if it fits within the timing, that takes a lower precedent of some of the other items, but it might address some of these issues of the sunset on the bank sign and some of the other pieces. So. All right, any questions from the group regarding future development projects? All right, seeing none. Item
Move
8.
adjournment.
A second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you, guys.